We're just here at the rite of election at Westminster Cathedral. We've had around about 700 catechumens and candidates, mostly young people, mostly young men and women becoming Catholics at Easter. So a real sense of excitement, real sense of hopefulness.
The fullness of time will show us the depth, but it is certainly the case that it is a good moment to be a Christian, a Catholic, a disciple of Christ.
Hi, I'm Louise. I am a teacher at a Catholic primary school, and I'm part of the RCIA on my way to becoming a Catholic at Easter. I was on holiday with my family, and we went on a cruise, and we'd gone to Ephesus in Turkey. It was just so religious there, and there were nuns everywhere. I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely incredible. And I got my little spending money, and I decided to spend my spending money on rosary beads. Now at the time, I just thought it was like a cool little souvenir from the holiday. This probably was the start of me beginning to think maybe, but completely subconsciously. And then moved to a Catholic school, and suddenly God and Jesus are absolutely everywhere, and we're at mass all the time, and I'm surrounded by these tiny children. Well, mine aren't that tiny, to be fair, I'm quite big. But like surrounded by children that have such deep faith and belief, and because mine are slightly bigger, they're year 6, you can have conversations with them about it. And I began to think, okay, so all of my colleagues now believe I have to go to mass, which I thought was incredible. My children are teaching me, and I thought, you know what? This is why I'm at this school. I'd always thought, nah, I'll stick to other schools, faith schools, I don't know. But no, found a job application, I applied and went, and love it. And I think that was his long-winded way of calling me to it. I think it started when I was 16, and now, 17 years later.
Raised within the Baptist church, and I was raised that way for my whole life. So I've always been going to church, always sort of been engaging with the faith. So I've always considered myself a Christian. You're spending your Sunday morning going to church, but it doesn't feel like the highlight of your week. It's just sort of another sort of chore you have to do. And of course I still believe in God, but I just thought, you know, there's something a bit lackluster there. And obviously with the internet and sort of forms of media, that's sort of what first exposed me to sort of more high church Catholic Orthodox kind of styles of worship.
You know, in my youth I used to go to church, it was an Anglican church, and then when I sort of got to sort of late teenage years, I wasn't going to church at all. Last year, my friend, we were in France together, and his godparents were very unwell, and his godmother had recently died, and while we were there, actually, his godfather died as well. And when we came back to London, he wanted to have a sort of a blessing, or sort of, you know, so we went to St. John's and, you know, asked, you know, if he could sort of make a prayer for them at Mass. And so we went along to the Mass, which for me was the first time, very unusual. You know, I was always sort of, what's this going to be like? And I found it absolutely incredible. You know, it really was, you know, I felt like I'd come home.
I have a very powerful source of faith that was a source of suffering, in the sense that I can demonstrate. I lost my mind, and later on I lost my arm, and then you have to believe me that there's a metal rod in my leg, and I fell from the 4th-story building. I don't remember how it happened, and the only thing that I remember is that shortly before the fall, I was grappling with the idea: is living good or is living bad? I was in the pre-fall stage of not recognizing, not being able to differentiate good from evil, and you know, I was at a loss. And then everything went black, and then somebody pushed me down the building, and somebody else held me and said, "You cannot take his life," and so I'm here. Very early on, after I was recovering from all of that, I was saying like, well, this is a grace of God, or this is a miracle that God has saved you, I could start to remember like, well, okay, yeah, God was there. I had direct experience, and through this suffering, and I know many of the tricks how we could be misled, and I crawled out of that pit with the means of the world, and now that I understood that there is other tools and there is the good physician to heal the wounds of that fall that I can't do on my own.
I think initially I was frightened to death of going, and to find out that actually it was a really friendly place. People were very friendly, and it was a very beautiful atmosphere.
Just how many Catholics there are, and like hidden ones that don't tell you that they're Catholic until you announce this. I do tend to announce this to people, and I'm like, oh, it's me. I'm becoming a Catholic. I'm joining the Catholic Church. I'm joining the RCIA. But oh, I am too. Oh, okay. So I think it's nice to be able to find more people.
A lot of things I thought about the Catholic Church, about the Catholic faith, weren't true. And the more I got to know it, I realised I've not really been given the proper image of the Catholic Church. But once you get to know it a bit better, I think that's certainly what surprised me. What Catholics actually teach, what we actually think, how we actually do things. I think that certainly did surprise me.
The one thing that stood out to me is that how easy it was to believe. I thought like, well, it's so dogmatic, and they tell you what to think, and there are different beliefs that you have to hold in. And then as I was learning more and more, I was like, wow, it sounds so obvious, or like then the Nicene Creed. Oh well, this is the core of the faith, and this is all I need to believe.
Just how much there is to the religion. From the outside, it's a pretty church, and they go to mass, and I knew that communion was a little bit different between the church that I would go to and this church, but just how everything ties together and the history behind it. From someone who came from a background whereas I don't think I can really believe it, and it's now the case of, well, actually you can't really not believe it. Like, you have to believe it because there's just so much evidence and proof and writing about it. And I think that's what I found more interesting, because that was, I think, what was holding me back before.
It's just, it's what's fascinating, or what draws me in is there's so much to the Catholic faith.
I'd say young people, they're looking at their future, where the way the world is going, and they feel, well, it's not going very well, things aren't going the way we want them to be. And it's in those moments, of sort of despair, where people are turning to God. For a long time, we've sort of put religion to one side, but now we've sort of seen the effects of that. People are sort of losing faith and meaning and purpose in their lives. People want to seek something bigger.
I think the world. We're going through a very tricky time in the world, everything-wise. And I think religion is something that just provides answers in a world where we don't really know what's happening.
Why people go to the Catholic Church, mostly because they're convinced that it is the truth. They search for the truth, and they see that, well, the Catholic Church holds the truth, and then when you hold on to the truth, despite how broken it is, you will still cling to it and want to fix it. It's there's so many analogies when in relationships and marriage. Once you are in that covenant, you should strive to try to make it work, and believing that it can work.
Well, from a purely sort of social point of view, I think people are trying to find somewhere that they feel at home.
I personally love the structure of like the mass, but also the week that it gives you. And I think a lot of people in a chaotic life and modern society need the structure without necessarily realising it.
Go ahead, go along and find out that there isn't actually anything to be afraid of.
Go and find like your local church or a pretty church, because there are some stunners out there, and just look at it and put no pressure on yourself. And then one day maybe go inside.
Go to a Catholic church, see what the mass is like, see what RCIA is like. You need to sort of engage with it, and then you will sort of come to the conclusion: is this right? Is this the truth?
And then God sees you. He wants to guide you, and who knows? Maybe God will want to guide you on the path where it's the easiest way to go about it. Easiest in the way that, it just flows and happens.
It's not difficult. It's not difficult for the Spirit to bring you into church.
That if someone feels that there's a little something there, embrace it, because that's what brings us all together. That little feeling that we all had has led us to this point.
It is certainly the case that it is a good moment to be a Christian, a Catholic, a disciple of Christ.